Morning guys, so we are looking at grouping data together. So this is where you start looking at stuff like frequency tables, okay? So you're probably very used to the tally chart, which is where you count up and then you just tally it and then you have the frequency. Frequency just means number of. So when we're talking about frequency in a frequency table, this just stands for number of. It's not the frequency as in how many hertz is this wave traveling, okay? It would just mean number of. So it's a different meaning for frequency. But anywho, if I was to take this data, otherwise, alternatively, if you've got the data in front of you, you can cross it out, and whilst you're crossing it out, you can fill out the tally chart, or you could count up all the answers. So if I was to look at the frequency of 10, then I would just count it. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay? So there's 6, okay? And then if I was to look at 11, I've got 3 of them. If I was to look at 12, got 3 of those. How many 13s? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then I've got 3 14s as well. Okay, so if a question asked you to fill out the table, the frequency is very important, but if they do include the tally, then better safe than sorry. You might as well just fill it out. If it helps you, you would have filled these out anyway. If you don't really use them, that's perfectly fine. Okay, but most of the time, by the time you get to GCSE, they wouldn't have that tally column in there. They would just have this column, be it score, duration, or anything else, and then the frequency. Okay, on top of this, they might ask you something else as well. They might say, well, how many batteries were being tested? One way is to count up all the data right there. Another nice easy way is just to add up all this data. So if I add up all these 5, I should get 20, okay? And that's my total. So if I said total, there should be 20 in total, okay? That's a nice way to double check that you've actually done the tally correctly as well. Because if you're counting it from your answers and you add up this 20 and it matches up with that 20, then obviously you've got it right, okay? So that is just the basic that you would need for a frequency table. Okay, so this is another example of a frequency table, but instead of putting it in vertical columns, they've actually just put it horizontally. Okay, so I'm saying how many people in year 7, how many people in year 8, how many people in year 9. So instead of writing frequency, they've just put number of students. So as I've said, frequency just means number of. Okay, so you should get used to sometimes the moving in between. Sometimes they'll explain it for you and say number of, and sometimes they'll just say frequency, because when you have a graph, most of the time you should remember from the bar chart you did put frequency up the side, okay? So you should remember that, and then this is a description of whatever it is. So sometimes they'll write frequency, sometimes they won't. You should be used to that. Okay, anywho, in regards to these wonderful questions, it says, how many students are in year 8? This should be a relatively easy question to just look at and read straight off the table. So you look up here where it says year 8, and then you have year 8, which is your second box, and then number of students would be 153. So for that first question, you've got 153. So a nice, simple question where all you need to do is just read that table. Some people accidentally just write 8. I don't know. That's the first part of the question. That's like understanding which box you need to refer to, but then just go for the box that kind of does frequency rather than just going for the year group. Okay, and then it says how many students are in year 9 or above. Okay, so this one requires a little bit more thinking, where it says year 9 or above. Okay, so that means I need to worry about the year 9s, the year 10s, and the year 11s. So year 9s, we've got 181. The year 10s, you got 175. And for the year 11s, I've got 159. Okay, and then what we need to do is. Otherwise, you can use your brain, which I'm sure is super, super amazing, or you can use the trusty calculator. I'm using the trusty calculator. Okay, so if I total all of them up, I get 515. Okay, so if someone was to ask me how many students are in year 9 or above, I would say 515 students. Okay, because all I've done is add up the year 9s, the year 10s, year 11s. If someone was to ask me how many students are between the ages of, I don't know, year 8 and year 10, then obviously I just go for, if it's between year 8 and year 10, then I would just go for year 9 because those are in between. But if it says including 8 and including year 10, then I would do 8, 9, 10. Okay, hopefully, because you guys have done inequalities, this shouldn't be too hard. Okay, so for the next one, it says 25 batteries were tested to see how long they lasted. The results were. Okay, so if I was to do a simplistic frequency table with this one, there are a lot of numbers in there. So would I have an individual row for 5, for 6, for 7, for 8, for 9, for 10? No, that would kind of be nonsensical. That's like asking me to get all of your heights and then put you in order of height and say, yeah, okay, so 2 people are 165 centimeters and one person is 163 and another person is 154 and another person is 185. It wouldn't really make sense. That's where you have to start putting it in groups just to make it easier to digest the information. Especially if I had to present it to someone, I wouldn't show the individual heights. I would show them in groups because then I would say this group of students is between these 2 heights. This group of students is between these 2 heights. Okay, so that is the point of a grouped frequency table because they're put into groups. I know it sounds obvious because it is. Okay, these are groups, but another word sometimes. People refer to them as groups, but most of the time you will see them referred to as a class because it's a class of people. Okay, it's the same way you're a class, you're a group of people, so it's a class. So if someone was to ask that first question, which says, which class does the battery that lasts 15 hours belong to? You would say, oh, okay, my 15 hours, there's 2 numbers on here which shows 15. I've got this one and I've got this one. You should remember from your inequalities, if I'm saying that, that means it's less than 15, but that does not include a 15. Whereas if I have this one, that means it's more than or equal to 15. So when we are talking about which class it belongs to, I would choose this group. I would not choose the group that doesn't include that 15 value. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. And then it says complete the table to show the number of batteries in each class. Okay, this is where a lot of people, especially initially looking at frequency tables, would use the tally because it's much easier to do the tally when you have grouped information because it's not the quick and easy of I'm going to count how many 5s, I'm going to count how many 6s, I'm going to count how many 7s. Okay, it's about looking at the entire group. So if I was to just look at it, it will be, I'm going to read horizontally. If you're doing it in columns, that's fine. You can do whichever way you want. So I've got 23, I've got 15, I've got 5, I've got 9. Okay, I'm just going to pause it and finish it because I can. Okay, so once you've done all the tallying, you can then just frequencies. So I've got 2, I've got 5, I've got 9, I've got 6, and I've got 3. Okay, and if you just want to add up all the numbers again, I've got 6, 3, 9, 9, 2 makes 20 plus 5 makes 25. Okay, so that's just me double checking that I've got the right number in there. Okay, so complete the table. I've done the second part, and then it says draw a grouped frequency diagram to represent the information. Okay, so in regards to the group frequency diagram, you will probably think it's very similar to a chart you've done a couple of weeks back. So I've got my duration in hours across the bottom, and then I've got my frequency on the side. So frequency on the side are pretty typical by this point for you guys. So we are looking at this information. So between 5 and 10, I've got 2. So 2 is here, and between 5 and 10, it's 2. So that's my first one, right? And then for the next one, between 10 and 15, I've got 5. So there's my 10, there's my 15. I think some of you are already understanding that this looks very similar to something. I do have a ruler, but this is for my pencil and I don't want to put ink all over it. Otherwise, I would say if you have graph paper or you're using a computer, you could always kind of just draw it on there. And you could have straight lines and not just messy lines of Miss Coulson. Between 15 and 20 is 9, so that's over here. Okay, don't like that one. That one's too messy. There you go. Between 20 and 25, it is 6, which is here. And between 25 and 30, we have 3. Okay, so that's your grouped frequency. It's very similar looking to a bar chart, but you might remember I was talking about continuous, and there's a reason why there's no gaps, because we are talking about every number that's leading up to 10 but does not include 10. Every number that is leading up to 15 but doesn't include 15. So you wouldn't actually have gaps in this one, okay? So that would be your grouped frequency diagram. So I'm going to include a worksheet that contains a variety of questions that should cover the skills that we've done over the past 12 minutes. So have fun, enjoy. Any questions, let me know. Okay, take care, guys.